Skyrim is a game filled with legendary discoveries. You can uncover ancient dragon priests buried beneath forgotten temples. You can descend into the glowing abyss of Blackreach. You can walk the halls of Sovereign itself. The province is full of grand stories, but hidden beneath those epic moments are hundreds of details that serve absolutely no practical purpose at all. Tiny mechanics, strange behaviours, facts so obscure they barely matter. They won't make you stronger, they won't help you defeat Alduin. Most of them won't even appear in your quest journal, because why would they? And yet they exist quietly inside the game's massive world, for every dragonborn to overlook. Little pieces of design that players stumble across accidentally. Some are funny, some are strange, some are so oddly specific that you begin to wonder why the developers included them at all. But strangely enough, they reveal just how detailed the world of Skyrim really is. One of the most famous facts in Skyrim involves one of its smallest creatures, the humble chicken. If you attack a chicken in a town, something strange happens. The entire settlement may suddenly turn hostile. Blacksmiths, guards, farmers, merchants, everyone nearby might attempt to kill you. At first glance, it seems absurd. Why would an entire village risk their lives over a single chicken? But behind the scenes, the answer is surprisingly simple. Chickens are technically flagged as owned property within the game's crime system. When you attack one, the game treats it as an act of theft or assault. And because many towns treat livestock as valuable resources, the entire population reacts as if you've committed a serious crime. It's not a dramatic mechanic, it doesn't affect the story, but it has confused players for over a decade. And for many new adventurers, the first real enemy they ever create in Skyrim is a chicken. Considering the Dragonborn can defeat dragons, master ancient magic, and shout enemies off cliffs, you might expect them to be an excellent swimmer, but strangely, they are not. In fact, Skyrim's swimming mechanics are incredibly limited. You cannot attack underwater, you cannot cast most spells underwater, and if you attempt to fight aquatic enemies like slaughterfish, you're forced to awkwardly swing your weapon at the surface. Even more strange is the fact that Skyrim contains very few underwater secrets compared to other Bethesda games. There are the occasional sunken chests or shipwrecks, but the ocean surrounding Skyrim is largely empty, which makes swimming one of the least useful abilities in the entire game. It exists, but it rarely matters. The sweet roll is one of Skyrim's most iconic foods, mostly because of a line of dialogue repeated by countless guards. Let me guess, someone stole your sweet roll. I'm sure you've heard it plenty. It's become a meme across the entire Elder Scrolls community, but the strange part is that the sweet roll theft actually interacts with Skyrim's crime system. If you steal food from an NPC's home, the game quietly logs that action, and if you're caught, the owner may react as though you've stolen something meaningful. In reality, sweet rolls restore a tiny amount of health and serve almost no strategic purpose. They are one of the least useful foods in the entire game, yet somehow they've become one of the most recognizable symbols of Skyrim. A useless item turned legendary through repetition. Every Skyrim player eventually has the same experience. You see a giant standing near a mammoth, you decide to attack, and seconds later you're launched into the sky. What many players don't realise is that giants were originally designed more like environmental obstacles than enemies. They have extremely high damage output and massive health pools compared to early game characters. In other words, they're meant to be avoided, but the physics engine introduces something unusual. If a giant's attack connects in a specific way, it can send the player flying hundreds of feet into the air. This bug became so iconic that Bethesda never fully removed it. Instead, it quietly became one of the game's most famous moments. Technically useless, but unforgettable. One of the strangest things in all of Skyrim isn't something you can actually find in the game, because it was removed before release. Hidden in Skyrim's unused files is evidence that Bethesda once planned to include an arena in Windhelm. The idea was simple. Players would enter the arena and fight a series of increasingly difficult opponents, slowly climbing the ranks until eventually becoming the champion of the arena. If that concept sounds familiar, it's because Bethesda had already done something similar in Oblivion. The Imperial City Arena was one of the most memorable side activities in the game, so bringing it back in Skyrim would have actually made sense. But the most interesting part of this cut feature wasn't the arena itself, it was how you got there. Some unused dialogue suggests that the Windhelm Arena was originally tied to the city's jail system. Instead of simply sitting in a cell to serve your sentence, prisoners would choose another option: fight. The idea was that inmates could enter the arena and battle other prisoners, like a gulag, as a way of earning their freedom. And when you think about it for a moment, it raises a pretty obvious problem. Because if someone is already in jail for committing a violent crime, letting them go free simply because they killed another prisoner probably isn't the smartest legal system. Which might explain why Bethesda eventually decided to remove the entire mechanic from the game. Still, the concept itself is fascinating. It suggests that Windhelm, already one of the harshest cities in Skyrim, might have had an even darker side. A place where justice wasn't about rehabilitation, it was about survival. Of course, like many pieces of cut content in Bethesda games, the story doesn't quite end there, because modders eventually stepped in and finished the arena themselves. Using the leftover files, scripts, and dialogue, they rebuilt the system Bethesda originally planned, which means the Windhelm Arena technically still exists, just not in the official version of the game. And in a strange way, that becomes a pattern for Bethesda titles. Entire mechanics get cut during development, and the community quietly puts them back together. Some of Skyrim's most interesting facts aren't about mechanics or glitches, they're about people. And one of the most mysterious characters in the entire game is someone most players meet very early in the Thieves Guild, Sapphire. She's a woman who doesn't really talk that much, and she gives fewer explanations as well. Most of the time she keeps conversations short, cold, and guarded, and it's clear almost immediately that she doesn't trust easily. But if you start digging into Skyrim's lore, a surprising amount of information about her slowly begins to appear. According to Skyrim's official game guide, Sapphire was once in the Dark Brotherhood. At some point in her past, she walked away from the assassins, not out of fear, not out of guilt, but because she wanted something else: money. Sapphire eventually joined the Thieves Guild, where wealth and opportunity mattered far more than loyalty or ideology. But her story doesn't end there. When the Dragonborn expansion was released, Bethesda quietly added another layer to her past. On the island off from Skyrim, players can meet a blacksmith named Glover Mallory. If the name sounds familiar, that's because Glover is actually the brother of Dalvin Mallory, one of the Thieves Guild's leaders back in Riften. At first, the connection seems minor, just another family link hidden somewhere in Skyrim's massive world. But there's more to it, because Glover Mallory has a daughter, and that daughter is Sapphire, which means that Dalvin Mallory, the man who helps run the Thieves Guild, is unknowingly Sapphire's uncle. This information is never directly explained in dialogue. Instead, the truth is hidden inside Glover's home. In the basement of his house on the island, you can find a letter addressed to Sapphire. The note reveals the entire story. Glover knows she's alive. He knows who she became. And despite everything, he still hopes she might one day return. If you bring this letter back to Sapphire and Riften, something unusual happens. For the first time, her cold personality cracks. She thanks you, genuinely, and in return, she gives you a unique reward. An exquisite sapphire. It's not a powerful artifact, it's not a legendary weapon, but it's one of the rare moments in Skyrim where a character's hidden past actually changes how they treat you. Most secrets in Skyrim are scripted events or simple Easter eggs, But Sapphire's story feels different, because it isn't about treasure or combat. It's about a family that was quietly broken apart long before the Dragonborn ever arrived. And unless you explore both Skyrim and Solstheim carefully, you might never realize the connection exists at all. None of these facts will help you defeat Alduin. They won't make your armor stronger. They won't unlock hidden quest lines. Most of them exist quietly in the background of Skyrim's enormous world. But that's what exactly makes them interesting. They reveal the strange complexity behind the game's design, the tiny systems, the unexpected interactions, the odd behaviours that emerge when a massive open world game tries to simulate life. Skyrim is remembered for its dragons, its battles, and its epic landscapes. But sometimes the most memorable moments come from things that barely matter at all. A flying giant, a stolen sweet roll, a secretive woman, a bucket placed over a shopkeeper's head. Useless facts, but somehow the details players remember the most.